Welcome to Bloomberg Law. I'm Pacchia. Last Friday, the United States credit rating was downgraded for the first time in history by credit rating agency Standard & Poor's. Joining me now to discuss the move and its implications, we have Judge Richard Allen Posner from the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. Judge Posner, thanks so much for joining us today. Welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So before we get into the weeds here, what do you make of S&P's action? Were you surprised that there was a downgrade?
No, because they had signaled that earlier. Well, really, it has two types of significance. One, a downgrade is a trigger for some financial activity. Some lenders might be required by their rules or just by their sense of prudence to demand more collateral on certain loans. So it can have those effects. But in addition, it's not so much that the rating agencies have superior forecasting ability, but for S&P to go out on a limb like this and downgrade Treasury securities, it says they're really convinced that there's some problem, enough to be willing to go out on a limb, as I say. So
right.
That
when this
communicates.
When this first came out, much was being made of the fact that we wouldn't know the full consequences or indirect consequences of the action for some time. That was last Friday. Now that a little bit of time has passed, we're almost halfway through the subsequent week. Do we have a fuller picture of what this is ultimately going to mean for our entire financial and economic system?
No, I don't think so, because it's very difficult to It's very difficult to understand short-term market movements, especially when they're so violent, such volatility. Because after all, a lot of people trading in the market, they're trading on the basis of what they think other people think, other traders think. So to what extent this is actually a reaction to the S&P's action or a reaction to what is believed, the way other people will react, is very unclear.
Do you think we're going to see further downgrades, either from the other ratings agencies, Moody's and Fitch, or perhaps from S&P itself? Do you think that they'll take us down another notch anytime soon?
Oh, I don't think soon. I don't think anything major will happen immediately with regard to the government's willingness or ability to pay its debts. But you know, we're in a situation of extreme uncertainty, so it's impossible to predict what will happen.
Judge, this whole episode has seemingly reopened the debate on the role of credit agencies and their effect on our financial system. Some are saying that because they are in such a powerful situation and can wield such real ultimate power, they've been able to use the threat of a downgrade almost as a bargaining chip to avoid further regulation and oversight into their affairs. Do you think there's any truth to that argument?
Well, if that argument were true, I would expect the other rating agencies to have done the same thing, right? They're in the same position that they don't want intrusive regulation. So the fact they didn't, I think, suggests that these are honest decisions. But I have no, insider's knowledge.
Back when we last spoke about Dodd-Frank, there were some provisions of the financial regulation legislation that would have provided some greater oversight or perhaps exposed the credit ratings agencies to some degree of liability for inaccuracies or oversights on their part. That almost has seemed to fall to the wayside over the course of time. Do you think that we need to have some level of oversight or regulation of the credit agencies? I mean, they wield so much control and influence over our financial system. It's tough to see why we shouldn't.
No, the only thing I think that is necessary is to remove the safe harbor provisions that say that certain types of investment decision are insulated from liability if they are based on ratings, right? So if you make an investment in stocks or in bonds rather that are highly rated by the agencies, that may insulate you from a lawsuit for negligence. That, of course, gives the rating agencies power. But that ought to be abrogated. That is, there oughtn't to be any legal significance to a rating agency's rating. It's just an opinion. And the investors should take it for what it's worth, but not be able to hide behind it.
I want to jump now and get your opinion on the debt ceiling debate and conclusion that we recently saw our way through. It's somewhat tied to the downgrade picture. In your opinion, did the White House get this right by avoiding a unilateral solution? Should President Obama
No.
have gone under the 14th Amendment to bypass Congress and raise the debt ceiling on his own?
Well, in my opinion, I'm not a politician. Yes. Well, I think what he first should have done was last December, was it? Mm-hmm. Should not have agreed to allow the Bush tax cuts to continue in force without an agreement to lift the debt ceiling. Number one. Number two, yeah, he should just raise the debt ceiling. There'll be a lawsuit. Who knows how it'll come out? I'm not going to try to make a prediction, but
we'd love to have you do that, Judge.
Well, that'd be a sign of that would be a sign of strength, right? Similarly, I think he should have summoned Congress back into session this week. Now, they could ignore him. That I'm pretty certain of. He does not have power actually to convene Congress, but it would be a great sign of strength. And of course, I think Congress would have to comply. What are they doing with their August vacation? Ridiculous, right? Ridiculous.
Right. It seems to be difficult times that we're seeing our way through here. Right.
I mean, look how embarrassing it is for those for Cameron to be on vacation when there are riots, and then he waits days to figure out whether he will cancel his silly vacation. Well, similarly, the fact that this is August doesn't mean that government should be grinding to a halt.
Right. So, I mean, we've been through a very rough patch. I mean, the situation on the financial front hasn't seemed to have evened out a whole lot. What do you think needs to be done going forward? Is it a matter of less regulation, more regulation? What's the balance?
I don't think regulation is the answer. If they want to, raise bank reserve requirements some, they could do that. But the Dodd-Frank bill is like 2,000 pages long, and that just creates enormous uncertainty, especially since, despite its length, a lot of it is just a delegation to the banking agencies to make rules, and that takes years to do, and just causes confusion. The answer really is very simple. I think most economists and most just common sense people would agree that in the short run, we need more spending in order to, stimulate economic activity, generate tax receipts, by the way, by raising incomes. So we have the short-term problem, unemployment and related slowdown in economic activity. That's the short term. The long term is the deficit, which we have years to deal with because the country is very wealthy and can certainly pay, even with a silly debt ceiling, it can still pay interest on the public debt, about 10 trillion. So we have the time. We need the short run focus on unemployment, which could involve additional stimulus money, and a long-term plan, which has to be a commitment. It can't just be a lot of pie in the sky. It can't be promises. You have to have a real commitment that over 10 years the deficit would be, it doesn't have to be eliminated, but you want to make sure the deficit doesn't grow as a percentage of GDP. That's all that's necessary, but of course our government is not functioning at the moment, so we can't get either short-term solutions or long-term. I don't think anyone believes that the rather modest $1.5 trillion that they want to cut over 10 years, that has any meaning.
Right.
It can be reversed, by Congress, by the president, and so on.
We'll have to see how it goes. Judge Posner from the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, I want to thank you for your time today, sir. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you. A pleasure for me, too.
That's Judge Richard Allen Posner. He's from the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago. If you'd like to learn more about the issues we just discussed, go check out our offerings on BloombergLaw.com and also on the Bloomberg Terminal. I'm Pacchia. Thanks for watching.